Hi, and welcome to this live reading of Heels of Fortune from the P.J. Santini series, Book 2, written by Lynne Russell, and this is hosted by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1. I will suck on your pussy until your ears flap like those of an elephant. The deep voice intoned over bump and grind background music that bore a striking resemblance to Hockey Night in Canada. The call was coming from my parents' house. Nana, is that you? Hello? Nana Giovanna? Why are you calling? Are you all right? Aspetta, wait. No, not you, my love, she said to the man at her end. Then the line went dead. My transplanted Sicilian grandmother was discovering amateur dubbed-in American porn, and the family was trembling at the possibilities. That's what you get for answering the phone in church, I told myself. But it was the other call that really started the trouble. It came so soon I thought it was Nana again. Not now, I'll call you back, I whispered. You have something that doesn't belong to you. I want it. Excuse me? The last time somebody said that to me, it was that bitch, Kathy Shula, in the parking lot during senior prom, trying to repossess the captain of the hockey team. She'd been way overreacting. I was only borrowing him. I'll put it in short headlines so you can understand, he said dryly. Your husband thought there was only the Polaroid, but there's a cod, a memory cod. You give me the goose, I'll give you the cod. Cod. Is this about fish? The card, the memory card. Oh, card. Sex talk number I accidentally dialed last week. You know it's illegal to keep calling me back. Remember, you're in the picture too. If you don't give me the goose, the cod will go to your friends at the precinct, and I promise you it will take you down. You'll never know what hit you. You have 48 hours. I'll be in touch. Wait, what am I? A farmer? I don't have any goose. You have the wrong number. No, I don't, Miss Santini. I'm looking right at you. Who are you? I demanded, whipping around, craning my neck to search faces. Nobody was looking at me, and nobody was on a cell phone. The guy had hung up. About that time, the church minister walked to center front, stretched out his arms, bent his knees, and made palms-down movements, his eyes fixed on some distant, imaginary chopper he was guiding in for a landing. This being a room full of TV people, it takes more than that to shut us up. So he lifted his arms out to his sides, about shoulder height, and began flapping in slow motion like an Animal Kingdom lake bird. The effect was curious enough that people did start paying attention and snickering. We had gathered there to bury our own twisted television colleague, Gerald Sigmund, Siggy, who'd been running a monster drug and prostitution ring off of his humble newsroom computer. It had gotten him dead. I'd become involved in that case both as a reporter and as a private investigator, but all that was finished now. The only things that were left were spent bullet casings from one end of Buffalo to the other, and glass shards that I was still pulling out of my head from a terrifying episode in a strip joint dressing room. Droplets of perspiration were running through the expensive MAC foundation on my upper lip, which did not improve my mood. The stranger on the phone had made me feel really pissy. It's not good to feel pissy at a funeral. So I leaned to my right and decided to take it out on another of his gender. Psst, hey, it's sweltering in here. Was it absolutely necessary for me to wear all this bedroomy crap? I complained into the man's smooth tan cheek. I watched the back of his hand slide up and down my arm, and it gave me the shivers, the sort of shivers that make your pupils dilate and drool slide out the corners of your mouth. All I suggested was the color, he said without looking. 2 layers of lace and long sleeves was your idea. So then, take one of them off. Smartass, you know the bottom one is underwear. This was all I had in black, except for my Catwoman outfit, which would have set the pews on fire. I didn't think people had to wear black to funerals anymore, but when have I ever said no to Tango Daly, the architect and owner of Iroquois Investigations, and the hottest private detective boss on the planet? All right, I have, but it's torture every time. So I've developed a hard and fast rule about hard, fast ones like Daly. When I start fantasizing about a possible future, any possible future. I picture myself a year down the road, 7 months pregnant, standing in a pink terry cloth robe and fuzzy scruffs in a laundry room, spot cleaning his jockeys. I'm allergic to that. But then my little internal voice starts up. You know, if it were daily, you'd like it. He'd have you propped up on the washer, diddling your spin cycle, and then I tell the bitch to shut up. My name is PJ Santini, as my full name is pure Italian linguistic pandemonium, Pompeo Giacobbe Santini, after my grandfather, according to some secret family tradition. I just go by PJ. Or sometimes people call me Janice, or my relatives go with Pommy, which is worse than the original. The scene of the crime, and love is always a crime, is Buffalo, New York. I'm a decent private detective and a better television news reporter. Most of the time, it's hard to concentrate because I'm hanging on to life by my fingernails. What with juggling relationships, wacko blood relatives, and revolving charge payments, the one thing that calms me is my 8x10 foot walk-in closet. I've got it lined with magnificent high heels. I've arranged them by color and illuminated them with the biggest, bitchiest crystal chandelier I could afford. It is without a doubt the best organized part of my entire life. When Nona sees the shoes, especially the boots with the thin heels, she spits and calls them slut shoes. Then she does one of those dramatic two-way over-the-shoulder glances to see if anybody's watching, and of course no one ever is. And she wants to know what size I wear. Thank God I'm into a 10, twice the size that supports her 4-foot, 11.5-inch frame. Speaking of numbers, I just had a birthday and would rather not talk about age. Okay, 30-something, but that's it. I've decided age is only a number, and mine is unlisted. When anybody asks, I've got a rehearsed answer that works for me. I just say I think of myself as a well-maintained, mid-range convertible that's just out of warranty. Nice paint, a few dings, substantial bucket seats, buffed up and durable in Pop's vernacular, but still fun to drive and ready for action. So there I sit in the crowded church, squished against Daly, wondering about the telephone mystery man who wanted so badly for me to goose him. Daly's thighs felt solid in his expensive Italian slacks, and he smelled faintly of a heady mix of gun oil, mystery, and power. On my other side was Johnny Renza, a fellow journalist and the first boy who ever loved me. Literally. His hormones shifted into overdrive in junior high almost overnight. One day he was childishly walking through the cafeteria at lunch, blessing our open cartons of milk with a crucifix that was dropping salt tablets out of a secret compartment underneath. The next day we were making out in the confessional. Wild and charismatic, he was different from the others, more willing to take chances. In the years that followed, somehow he was always in my life. Then at college, one starlit night in his car, he undid my bra with an impressive flourish and pointed out that we had known each other for so long he'd actually watched me grow up. At that moment, I realized in a rare flash of insight that I couldn't honestly say the same thing about him. He hadn't grown up at all, and I didn't think he ever would. So I started looking around for more mature candidates. Before long, I snagged myself Lou Bonmarito, a law school grad. Much to my family's delight, he asked me to marry him. And I said okay. Ma and Pop cheerfully cleaned out their Pommy's wedding savings account, which had been accruing interest 10 years longer than they'd thought it would. And the family threw a big Sicilian blowout with dreams of grandchildren dancing in their heads. 48 hours later, Lou was dead. A damn heart attack on our honeymoon. You can't make this shit up. These days, the men in my life are the ones I work with, including Renza, who also went to journalism school and is a fellow reporter at my Buffalo television station. His beat is crime. My beat is anything they'll give me. My work is every bit as good as his, and more than once my intelligence, intuition, and certain other body parts have outpaced him in getting a story. But that same female equipment also gets me the dopey assignments, while he enjoys the challenging ones. He does it by bluffing. Just look at him. Renza is the only person I know who could get away with wearing a white linen suit to a funeral that isn't in the Bahamas. He has everyone snowed. Women fall all over him because of his dark wavy hair and big moony Italian eyes. Men wish they could manufacture the same cocky attitude and trademark look. Renza. Johnny Renza. "Check it out," he whispered to me, angling his head toward the gaggle of plainclothes, gum-chewing cops collected in the side doorway of the church. It even brought long lenses. "Why are they here?" I asked him. "They're Longoria's eyes and ears. You'll notice the bastard's not here himself, but he wants to make sure we're all behaving. Frank Longoria is another guy I grew up with, a juvenile delinquent turned senior homicide detective. I know where his skeletons are buried, and he knows I know it. But when I reported on our infamous recent shootout during the final phase of the Gerald Sigmund case, I couldn't tell it at all. I'd have to leave out Frank's connection to the mob because I couldn't exactly prove it. He wanted to keep it that way. His boys would be busy taking notes today for purposes of intimidation and possible retribution. Not just with me, but with anybody on the guest list, and the guest list looked like a who's who of criminal minds. Eventually, we adjourned to our cars and made the drive to the Old Town Cemetery. It occurred to me that this was the one time we knew beyond a shadow of a doubt after Slippery Siggy's Central American drug operation finally blew up, exactly where the elusive creep really was. Every car in the funeral procession had its air conditioning jacked up in the stifling summer heat as we snaked along Remembrance Way, which ironically had been named for veterans of foreign wars, not foreign scores. After a couple of turns, we parked and made the uncomfortable walk to the grave. The hot ground by the casket sucked up my black patent leather stilettos like soft cement. Sweat trailed down the center of my back as I made an unsteady effort to shift my weight without leaning on either Daly or Renza. Both would consider that foreplay. An hour later, we'd wrapped it up, and everybody was grateful to be headed out when a guy shouted over from 3 tombstones away, "Hey, do I look crazy to you?" I wouldn't say his eyes were spinning around like Marty Feldman's, but it was hard to tell which one was looking at me. That would depend on your definition of crazy, I told him. They're trying to make me believe I'm insane, but I'm as solid as you are. As me? That would be a problem. How can you tell? I shouted back. Everybody who's crazy swears they're not. He dragged his shovel over and leaned an elbow on it while he wiped sweat out of his eyes with the back of his other hand. Well, I know what I know. I dug my ass off last night getting a plot ready for today, and today the damn thing isn't here. It's gone. Are you telling me somebody stole a hole? Are you a gravedigger? Cemetery maintenance specialist. Willie Short's the name. I use a machine for most of it, then I finish it off myself. Last night I dug it. Today it's solid ground with 3 inches of grass growing on it. Want to see? No. By now Renza had bailed, the chicken shit, and Daly had backed off to enjoy the show. Turns out Willie Short had been digging alone in the moonlight, and his only companion was Evan Williams' Kentucky Straight. Not what you'd call a reliable witness. Still, when he came to in his own bed this morning, his overalls had new dirt on them, just as you'd expect from someone who'd been digging. This isn't the first time. Say, you're on TV, aren't you? Will you explain to my boss it's not my fault? Now, there's no place to bury Lola. Everything in me said, get out while you can. But I could not help myself. Okay, Mr. Short, I'll bite. Who's Lola? That's cute, I'll bite. Lola can't bite anymore. She's a schnoodle. Or she was. What's a schnoodle? Some religious sect? It's a sort of hypoallergenic cross between a schnauzer and a poodle. Over there, across that row of hydrangeas in the pet cemetery. That was it. Purely out of habit, I lobbed an Iroquois Investigations business card at him. I sure didn't want him calling me at the station, and took a fisted swipe at Tango, who was standing there grinning with his arms crossed. As usual, he was faster and caught my wrist before I could do any real damage. Also, as usual, I couldn't wait to try it again later. There was something about the way the breeze caught his shirt, the way the black silk settled over his toned chest. It made my head fizzy. Want a ride? He said seductively as he strode easily beside me. His ride was a fancy BMW 700 series command post, a black stealth mobile that housed every piece of covert operations equipment that wasn't already in his 2-story locked-down private office. I wasn't positive how he got the name Tango, but I knew he'd been U.S. Army Special Forces, had done unspecified covert work afterward, and had enough martial arts expertise to slice you like bacon. I was glad I was his friend. An enemy would have a bad day. Very funny, I told him over my shoulder. He knew my ride was still the Toad, a pathetic, worn, green automobile the insurance company had generously loaned me when my pet mint-condition silver Mercedes SLK named Sweet Boy had been ripped off right under my nose. But I'd never given up hope. Around every corner, in every parking lot, I expected to see Sweet Boy again, and I wasn't going to settle for buying anything else. The Toad accepted that he was only a temp and took me downtown anyway, to my condo in Erie Towers on Lakefront Boulevard.